Welcome to the Navigator podcast. Welcome to the Navigator Academy. Our guest for this module is Chris Peterson, president of Vector Firm, the premier training and management consulting firm focused on modern-day sales and marketing performance for the security and systems integration industry. Chris, you've worked with hundreds of companies and thousands of participants to create intelligent strategies, repeatable processes, and effective tools that position their sales professionals to drastically surpass their goals and build thriving sales operations. We've talked about your training solution, Vector Firm Academy, in a previous podcast, and I really like Vector Firm's key differentiator, your philosophy on selling. Building on that, this module was titled Commission Plans, which are a key component in any comprehensive sales compensation plan. So Chris, thanks for sharing your expertise, and let's go talk about commission plans.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for mentioning our key differentiator as our selling philosophy. A lot of people think it's because we just focus on system integration companies and that's our niche, so that's our differentiator. But I appreciate you saying that. No, that is a big deal that we have a niche, but our philosophy on how technology and services should be sold in today's world, we believe is the same.
Oh, absolutely. And the more I work with you guys, the more, I mean, it's prevalent in kind of the DNA. So appreciate that. How would you distinguish compensation plans from commission plans? And do you see people often kind of collapsing the two or confusing the two?
Well, when we build compensation plans for our clients, commission plans are just a part of it, if that makes sense. I was on a panel not 10 years ago, pretty darn close, and talking about sales compensation. And there was a lady on there who was a human resources professional. And I'm so glad I served on that panel because of what I learned from her. And she was talking about the future, which is today. Yeah. And she really nailed it. She said, the thing I took away was that you've got to be able to present an entire package of compensation to the people that the candidates that you're trying to hire. And it's not just, hey, here's your salary. No, this is everything from your vacation time to the type of training that we're giving you to, like, here's your benefits, everything. This is your package, right?
Right.
And when I heard her say that, I was like, yeah, geez, that's exactly how my clients should be, presenting this. And so commission, bonus structures, accelerators, whatever you have as your package, it's part of the overall compensation. That's how we view it.
Well, and again, I think that, as you're saying, a lot of people start to pick one area, they lose the wholeness of it, and the breadth, and then how to negotiate all of those. What do you see as, once you have that plan, what do you see are some key components to ensuring the success of those plans?
I think that first, you need to have a plan that's scalable and that's going to continue to have value in the long term, where you're just going to be flipping people constantly. One of the areas, and I'll come back to answer your question directly, but I think this will provide somewhat of an example. One of the areas that we have flipped in the last 5 years, just like pre-pandemic to now, is when we would advise our clients or build compensation plans for our clients that are trying to promote recurring revenue in their company.
Right.
And they want to create a program to stimulate that, but at the same time, manage the cash flow of the business. We used to advise that they paid as much as they could. We'd advise they pay all of it up front. So if you had a 5-year contract, you paid that salesperson for all 5 years up front. That's what we used to advise. And the reason we advise that is because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the idea of changing that behavior was a tough thing to do. It was an uphill battle to get someone to stop selling on. It still is an uphill battle.
Yes,
but
right.
It was even more than of selling an on-premise system versus an as-a-service system, right? So the idea was, let's pay them let's stimulate the heck out of them. Let's get them excited. So instead of paying them, $250 a month of commission, we're paying them 60 times that because it's for sale, or 36 times that, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And they get it all, boom, right here. And that will really stimulate some excitement and change their behavior. And by the way, don't worry them, because if they're continuing to, you're going to lose some, but if you're going to, and you're going to lose some money because you paid them all up front and they're not there for years 3 and 4, whatever, that's fine. You're still going to get the money from their customer. That's our old advice. Our new advice is this: pay them as you get paid. And here's why: because the salesperson's annuity that they build up year after year after year will keep them employed by you. And
Exactly.
here's why it was the same 10 years ago, but here's why so nothing's changed except our opinion. The reason our opinion has changed is because personnel has become such a valuable asset today, because people just flip. And by the way, the labor market is shrinking, because my generation didn't have children. we didn't have enough kids, right? So the labor market is shrinking, and people, it's normal now just to have a job for 9 months and go take another job.
Right.
So keeping your people is such a premium value. If you can build with your compensation plan a way to where, let's say the base salary is $90,000, and then all of a sudden they build up a nice little annuity after 5 years of selling recurring revenue, where they come into the year and that annuity is 30 grand. So now you really have $120,000 salary. Essentially, it's not a salary, but it's,
It pretty much is with that annuity. Yep, exactly.
Right. So, one of the key components, I think, is building a plan that is going to not just get your candidates to take the job, but it's going to keep them around in the long terms, to where it's flexible. You can make changes and it's not going to hurt them too much. And because changes are going to happen.
Yep.
So some of the other key components, and I'll just throw out some basic, because some people, everyone knows these, but just to state them: don't have a cap. And here's why. Once it's so much, the perception of a cap is 20 times worse than reality. Because the fact is, most of the salespeople think, well, they're going to cap me on my commissions. Okay, are you ever going to sell $100 million? I mean, is it ever really going to happen in your life?
Right. But just the word.
That's right, Brad. Just the word. All of a sudden, it's like COVID 3 years ago. You just said the word, it's like, oh, I'm not going around that person. Right. And so don't have a cap in your commission structure. If you're worried about cash flow, perhaps you can have a clause saying, if and the clause can sound attractive, actually: if excessively high commissions damage the business's cash flow, then we will work out a payment plan, something like that, right? But don't have a cap. This is going to go over with some people, not very nice, but not very well, but you got to pay them a salary now. You just do. And I don't mean, I mean a decent salary. Right. Different world. You can't get away with a low salary and a high variable compensation anymore. And well, you can, but you're going to get people who are desperate. So those are the things that pop in my mind right away.
Great. Okay. Where have you seen commission plans fail? Kind of brought up the opposite of what I just said, Brad, but I mean, any other reasons? No, there are. One, just in general, people don't think about them. They're using the same compensation plan that, I love the story of the pot roast, the guy that makes the pot roast every year for Thanksgiving, and he cuts off the front and cuts off the back. Right. And finally one day his wife says, "Why do you do that?" He says, "I don't know. That's what my mom did." So they call his mom. His mom says, "I don't know. That's what your grandmother did." So they call the grandmother, and the grandmother says, "Oh, our oven was too small when we started cooking pot roast." Right. Exactly. But they're still doing it that way. Right. And so a lot of companies are still using the same compensation plans and the same philosophies as they were. So going back to the low salary versus a high salary. Okay, so 25 years ago,
it was 25 years ago exactly. I interviewed for a job and I was not equipped to get this job. It was a miracle that I got the job, and I did very well in the job. But I was well over my head. And when I went in for the interview, I mean, I was young, I was 28 and wasn't experienced enough. But when I went into the interview, I remember thinking, just go for it, man. You're not going to lose because you're not going to get this job anyway. So just go for it. And the hiring manager, her name was Tiffany, and Tiffany was talking about salary. And she said, well, our salary is 40,000 and your salary is higher where you are right now by a little bit. Just now our overall compensation's higher, and it was significantly higher than what I was currently making. And I said to her, I remember thinking, just go for it. I said, look, Tiffany, as far as I'm concerned, don't pay me any salary and just pay me a higher commission. In fact, take away my benefits, just pay me a higher commission and let me earn what I get. And now in the back of my head, I knew they weren't going to do this, but
Right.
it was, and she looked at me like I walked on water. And at that moment, boom, I turned from her trying not to disappoint me to her trying to get me to come work for her.
Yep.
Today, if somebody says that, the person interviewing them will look at them as though they're desperate. Because today it's not that the person that won't take a job with a high upside and a low salary, today they're like, oh, you don't have confidence in your skill set. It's just a different world. It's a different type of person that interviews for these jobs. And in their mind, if I take a low salary, even though I might make more, let's say I'll make 180 grand, but I'm only making a $30,000 salary, but you're telling me you're going to pay me 80 and I'm only going to make 150. The more seasoned, skillful people will take that 150. 25 years ago, that was unheard of.
Right. So it's just different model.
Different mindset. And I don't know if it's generational or just the way sales has shifted, because you used to eat what you killed.
Yep.
Today, you eat what you cook, because
Got it.
everything's a lot's getting to you. So it might be generational. It might be just the way the business has evolved. It's probably a little bit of both. But that's one of the big mistakes, Brad, is that companies feel like they should look, if we're going to get the hunter we really want, we're just going to pay him 100% commission. Only hunters will want that job. Well, no, only desperate people want today. That job. I would have been all over that in 1998, but not. Well,
but again, different life, different structure, all those things.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you also referenced or highlighted the book, the Challenger Sale. What makes that one of your favorite books?
The research they did.
That is like a big, when I skimmed it, it was like going, they did a lot of research.
Hey, do you have that in front of you? Who are the authors? I forget.
Oh, I've got it right there. Matthew Dixon, Brent Adamson.
So Matthew Dixon, Avidex is having them speak as a keynote at their event in April. And Gannon, who works for me, is the opening act.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And he just wrote a new book called Jolt. I mean, not that he needs our promotion.
Right.
I'm sure he paid his car payment this month. But he doesn't need any more success. But the reason I'm looking forward to reading Jolt, because the research that their organization does before they write something is fantastic. And I'm being kind of biased, because when I read the book in 2012 or 13, I don't remember when I read the Challenger Sale. Everything, and I mean everything, that they did research on for years, and sample sizes of hundreds and thousands of people and departments and companies, everything that came back validated what we were doing by gut feel and anecdotal evidence. I shouldn't say it was all gut feel. It was just my experience, basically. It was just me back then. It was my experience of working with organizations and anecdotal data. And I remember always thinking, gosh, I hope I'm right. And this book came along and basically illustrated, no, you're right. The fact is, you've got to have, in today's post-internet world, you've got to have competence. It's not just all about relationships and everything else that the best sales managers that are out there are the ones that are in the field, rolling up their sleeves and working on projects with their salespeople. All these things that came out of the Challenger sale. You can't just be a yes man anymore. You've got to, from the title of the book, you've got to challenge your customers because that's what they need in today's world. Google is a yes man for Google gives them all the information they need. If you're going to add any value, you got to challenge them to. So that's why I like that book so much, because if people didn't know me before 2013, they might think that I started my business after, thankfully we started in 2010, because we're not just a disciple of the Challenger sale. But I love the book. The research is fantastic. I've read it twice, and I'm looking. Jolt is number one on my list right now. My next book I'm going to read.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good talking to you.
You got it, man.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me. See ya.